Grand Rising, everybody. Thanks for jumping on. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Come on in. Um, you guys seeing this video, whatever time you're seeing it, drop that city and state, double tap that screen, let me know where you're tuning in from. Make sure you share this video, and also make sure you subscribe to our channel. Um, Make sure you subscribe to our channel and hit the bell to be notified. My name is Eric. This is the Blanks Spot. We are a sublimation blanks and supply warehouse located right outside of Columbia, South Carolina. And guys, today I'm going to be talking about something that I think is very important, especially in the crafting world, in the crafting industry. So, before I get too deep into it, I am broadcasting to another platform. I've also shared it to a couple of our other social media platforms as well. So you can hit us on any social media platform. You can hashtag find the blanks spot. That's THEBLAKS. Excuse me, SPOT. And you'll find us on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. I think we got a Pinterest out there somewhere. Anyway, so let's say you are new to crafting. You just minding your business. You just minding your business. Hey, and Grand Rising, thanks for jumping on. You just minding your business, and you are on your social media, and something happens to scroll across your social media page. You see somebody making something, and you're excited because you too make things, and you also are interested in learning more about how to make things. Whether you're talking about doing some vinyl, you're talking about doing bling, DTF, sublimation, any other types of arts and crafts, right? You see them come across your timeline. Betty, Grand Rising, thanks for jumping on. They're popping in on YouTube, y'all. I appreciate it. But you see somebody pass through your timeline and go across your social media platform. You're just scrolling and you see them. And they say, hey, you know what? I want to do that too. But you see them in the middle of what they're doing. You catch them in the middle of making their project. Whether they're creating designs for t-shirts, whether they're making templates for tumblers, whatever the case may be. One thing that people don't really talk about, or that I haven't seen them talking about too much, one thing that I haven't really seen people talk about is measuring and the importance of measurements. Now, for all intents and purposes, there's different types of designs that you can create for different types of items. There's different ways. It's actually different ways to measure. There's different ways to measure. There's different ways to use this fabric ruler that I'm going to show you guys in a minute. If I'm doing sublimation, it depends on the type of design that I have. I may measure width and height. I may measure the width and the height. If I'm doing a vinyl transfer, a vinyl image, something I'm doing vinyl, because this is vinyl, I may measure the width and the height. Okay, I may do that. If I'm doing something to design something for a direct to film transfer, DTF, I may only need to take that excuse me, that image and measure the width, because if I disturb the height, then that image may get boxed in. It may come out distorted. Okay, so there's different ways that you're gonna measure for different processes. In this video, we're gonna talk about measuring as it pertains to sublimation. Okay, now this is a fabric ruler. If you do not have a fabric ruler, I recommend you getting a fabric ruler. You can find this at any department store that sells. Well, let me back up. Any store that probably sells fabrics, you can find those there. We sell them here at the Blank Spot. You can find them on our website at theblankspot.com. You can go to Walmart, you can go to Target, any fabric store, any crafting store should have these. And this is the fabric ruler. Now this fabric ruler measures, it goes up to 60 inches. That's 5 feet, okay? It comes with this little gold or metal piece on each end. Now what I usually do is I usually take the number one end off. Okay, where it starts with the number one, I usually take the end off because I want to make sure that everything is straight. And as you can see, that line is not straight. Okay, that line is not straight. So what I usually do is I'll start my measurement at number 1. So that's just something that I do. Now, why am I talking about measuring? Well, because we here at the Blank Spot, we provide our customers with sublimation transfers. We provide our customers with custom sublimation transfers. Therefore, people are going to have to upload their transfer to our design software, and they may have to measure it once they get inside the design software. For example, let's say someone wants us to print them some tumbler wraps. They want us to print them some sublimation tumbler wraps. Some skinny 20-ounce sublimation tumbler wraps. They're going to need to know the circumference of that tumbler. So the circumference of the tumbler is going to be the width. Okay? They're going to also need to know the height of the tumbler. How long that tumbler is. That's going to be the height or the length. Okay? So they're going to need to know what their measurements are. They can't go by our measurements. If they go by our measurements, that means that they should be buying our sublimation blanks, because we measure our sublimation transfers per our sublimation blanks. Okay? Everything that you're going to press, sublimate, every substrate should be measured. Okay? Every substrate should be measured, because you never know, the substrates may come in a different size. So if you guys are just joining, we're talking about measuring and how important measuring is. And I'm on my YouTube channel as well. I'm live right now. You guys can go and see this again on the YouTube. It is the Blank Spot. Okay, it's the Blank Spot. We're talking about how important is it to really be able to measure and to actually understand measuring. Now, I need to know. This is going to be a little interactive. I need to know. By a show of hands. By a show of hands. If you can't find the hand emoji, type a number 2 in the comments. By a show of hands, or type a number 2. How many people have a problem, or how many people are concerned when it comes to measuring? Type a number 2 in the comments if measuring raises a concern for you. You're concerned about measuring. You're not that good at measuring. Type a number 2 in the comments. I'd like to see who I have on here and what type of audience I have. Type a number 2 in the comments if you guys, you struggle with measuring, or you have a problem with measuring. Anybody out there willing to admit that? Anybody out there willing to admit that? Because I got to admit, when I first got started, my wife first hit me up, and she was like, hey, we're going to be doing this. This is it. This is the real. This is where we're taking this. I never had a problem with measuring, but when it comes to different substrates, when it comes to different items and different designs, it can be an issue. With tumblers especially. Okay? So, let's do a quick example. Give me a second. So here is a 20-ounce skinny straight sublimation tumbler. Okay? Now, these tumblers come in different sizes. They come in different circumferences. And they come in different heights or lengths. Okay? So now, the first thing that you're going to want to know how to do is, you're going to want to know how to read this thing. And this is one of the biggest issues. It's not that people have an issue with the numbers. You can figure out what the numbers say, but it's the little hashes in between the numbers that give people problems. Okay, and I'm gonna give you a quick solution to that as well. Once we get a little further along in the video. All right. So once again, my name is Eric, coming in from Columbia, South Carolina, and this is the Blank Spot. We are a sublimation blanks and supply warehouse. This morning we're talking about measuring your substrates. Measuring for designs, and I'm gonna use this 20-ounce skinny straight tumbler for an example. Okay, and don't forget, guys, go to the YouTube channel, subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified. You can see this video again. Now, some people will take this tumbler and they will measure in the middle. I don't do that. And I've already told you that I've taken the metal end off. I've taken the metal end off of the number one. Where it says number one, I've taken that metal end off. Okay? So some people measure from the middle. I take my fabric ruler and I hold it with my thumb in place. And I want to be as close as I can around the edge of this tumbler. As close as I can around the edge of this tumbler. As even as I can. Okay, as close as I can and as even as I can. Now, there's going to be a little guesstimation in here. A tad bit of guesstimation in here. And the problem, I think, especially with tumblers, I think people have a problem with the measurements with tumblers is because when you're trying to create your design, or when you're, maybe you grabbed a design off of another platform, someone else created it. You're trying to make a seamless tumbler. In the beginning, a lot of people are trying to make seamless tumblers. So that's going to be a concern as well. But I'm just making sure that this is even all the way around, as close as I can all the way around. I don't want my tape measure to be like this. See how that's crooked? How it's not exactly straight? We don't want our tape measure to be like that. We want our tape measure to be even around either the top or around the bottom. That's just my recommendation. Okay? That's how I do it. And I'm going to give you another tip. Because I've taken that that metal off. Now I'm holding this tight. Because I've taken that metal off, I can safely and confidently measure this tumbler. Safely and confidently measure this tumbler, or correctly, measure this tumbler without having any buckles, because that's what you don't want. You don't want to have any buckles in your measurement. You don't want to have any buckles in your tape measure. Okay. A lot of people, they'll just measure once and then they'll go with it. You don't want to do that. So I did leave a little dip, and I'm gonna share with you why this is not gonna make a big difference. I did leave a little dip, and that's just so I can see underneath the fabric ruler. Okay. Now this doesn't have to be perfect, but I left a little dip, and I can see that little notch and where it hits. I can see that little notch and where it hits. Okay. So our tumblers, and this is my measurement, our tumblers, the exact measurement is 9.125. How do I get 9.125? Well, it's falling in between 9 and a quarter. It's coming in between the first line and this line. So this second line is 0.25. That's a quarter. That's a half. Okay? How do I know that? Because I got a conversion chart. We created this conversion chart to make it easier for people who are new. You can find one online, or you can purchase ours. It's a digital conversion chart. Okay? Find one online, or you can purchase this. So basically, what happens is each one of these notches are fractions. And we're going back to basic math, y'all. We're going back to basic math. And I know a lot of people say, you know what? When you say certain words, it kind of offends certain people. If you're here to be offended, I promise you, you're going to be. But it's basic math. These are fractions. And each line is either a whole number or a fraction. So when you get here and you know your fraction, you now have the conversion where it breaks the fraction down from fraction to decimal. From fraction to decimal. Okay, so you can go on our website, theblankspot.com. That's THEBLANKSSPOT.com, and you can look for ruler conversion chart. We made it easy for you. Okay, I think the thing's like $2 we're selling for. Anyway, so when I measured my tumbler just now, it fell between I was on 9, so this is 9. It fell between here and here. It was right in the middle. I know that this is 1/4, 1/4. It fell in the second line behind the 9. I know that that second line is 1/4. Okay? This is the second line that I'm talking about. Don't worry about the little small lines. It's falling in between here and here. Okay? It's falling in between here and here. So, that reads 1/8. That's 1/8. So when I look at my conversion from fraction to decimal, 1/8 equals 1.25. I'm going to make it even simpler than that. If you look at 1/4, 1/4, that's a quarter of a dollar. If you look at 1/4, that's 25. If I were to divide 25 by 2, I would get 12.5. Did that make it easier? When I learned fractions, I learned how to count money. And unfortunately, a lot of people didn't learn like that. And it kind of stuck with me. So, if you think about dollars, and money, 4 quarters make $1. That's 1 whole. So 4 quarters make 1 inch. Right? 4 quarters make 1 inch. If you break that thing down, 4 quarters is 25 each. And then you have your eighths. And you break your eighths down, 8 eighths are in that dollar. So 12.5, 12.5, 12, so on and so forth. So now that you understand how to read in between, because you may not need a conversion chart, but if you understand how to read in between, it's going to make a lot of difference. Now, you don't want to measure, you never want to measure exactly. Now, some of y'all probably say, man, this is boring. I just want to go ahead and start making stuff. Well, if you can't measure correctly, your designs are always going to come up short, or they're going to be too big. If they come up short, that means specifically with the tumbler, it's not going to connect. Okay? If it's too big, that means if you have words on your tumbler, it's going to overlap too much, and when you go to cut it off to adjust it, then those words may be cut off. So it's important to understand how to use this thing right here, which is it's a fabric ruler. So when you do use some of our services, to include our sublimation transfers, our gang sheets, when you go to use our services, and you're inside of our design software, and now it's time to upload your images, and you want to adjust, before you even do that, you know what size you need. See, what I found, and what I continue to find, is that there are people who are new to creating things. And they'll ask me, they say, hey, what's the measurements for this? Well, unless you're buying this from us, the measurements are not going to do you any good. Also, unless you are taping and pressing like I'm taping and pressing, it may not do you any good. You may be the type of person that's using a little pincher. If you're using a little pincher, you may want to have that tumbler done exact. If you have a flowing design, you may want to have it exact. So it's important that you measure every substrate. Before you even go to start making anything, it's going to be important to understand how to use the fabric ruler. Now, I know I talked about the fabric ruler a lot. I talked a little bit about the conversion chart. You can find this conversion chart if you don't want to make the purchase through us. You can find a conversion chart on social media. I mean on a platform. You can go and Google it. You can find a conversion chart and create your own. But I keep this handy, even though I'm confident with my measurements. I keep this handy, and I keep this handy because we get projects. And one of the projects that I'm working on right now is going to be important for me to understand how I'm going to position the image on a shirt, where the image is going to fall, and how I'm going to make sure that makes sense to me, and also it looks good for the customer. So I'm going to open this up for any questions, and you feel free to share any comments. The chart comes in handy for multiple crafts. Absolutely. And like I said, for me, we're basically sublimation blanks and supplies. So that's our niche. That's what we're falling into. But we do several different things as well. But every craft needs to understand how to measure. Asking another crafter what their measurements are is not going to do you any good. When you start dealing with fabrics, when you start dealing with handbags, when you start dealing with backpacks, when you start dealing with mouse pads, things that have different shapes, giving you the answers, giving you the numbers to the measurements is not going to help you. In fact, it's actually going to hurt you, because someone may get some supplies from one company and then turn around and get different supplies, or you may get different supplies, and you're wondering why the measurements are off. They're off because things are not cut the same. They're not machined the same. Even though this tumbler, it appears to be round, some of these tumblers I find have a slight divot in them. They may have a bend in them. There's some certain things that are wrong with them. There are tumblers out there, because this tumbler is a exactly it's 9.125. Okay, that's the circumference. But we do our measurements 9.3 by 8.2. There are some tumblers that are 9.4. They are shorter and they are thicker. So it's always important to understand that no matter what you buy, no matter who you're getting your substrates from, no matter how you're starting to design, it's important to understand how to measure. I can't stress that enough. Now, once you are understanding how to measure and you're confident with measuring, you never measure once. Measure a couple of times. There's this old adage, you can measure once and just go ahead and start doing it, but you may end up cutting twice. So you always measure more than once to make sure your eyesight is great. Make sure that everything is lining up, because you could have done it so fast and you missed out on something. So always measure more than once. I would say measure at least 3 times. Okay? It may seem a little tedious. I got a case of tumblers and I already know my measurements, and if you feel confident, that's fine. But if you're beginning, especially if you're a beginner, you definitely want to make sure that you practice on measuring, that you understand how to measure. Some of these tumblers are flat bottoms. Some of these tumblers are tapered at the bottom. And you're going to want to know what the difference is when you're actually measuring. So handling this fabric ruler is a very essential part to your success in crafting. Handling this fabric ruler is a very essential part to crafting, okay? Very essential. So, that's all I got. If you don't have any questions or comments, I am going to go ahead and end my YouTube live. Like I said, guys, make sure you go to the YouTube, hang out with us, subscribe, hit the bell to be notified. I hope the information that I shared was valuable. Thank you, everybody, for jumping on. This is Eric coming in from the blank spot. Like I always say, when you know better, that's when you have the ability to do better. And the only knowledge that's powerful is properly applied knowledge. I'll see you guys at the top, because there's too many people struggling at the bottom. Peace.